Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature. I'm Jill Kuramoto. Every week we sit down with Hawaii senators to talk about the events and the issues that are happening within the Senate during this legislative session. And joining us today we have Senator Glenn Wakai. And Senator Wakai represents District 15, Kalihi to Pearl Harbor. Senator Wakai is the chair of the Senate Committee on Economic Development, Technology and Tourism. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm super thrilled to be on Live at the Legislature. For some of the viewers, it's been 25 years when Jill and I were actually anchoring the news together in Guam a long time ago. So it's the first time I've gotten the opportunity to be interviewed by my illustrious former colleague.
Always great to work with you. Well, let's talk about your committee. And I know it's a broad number of issues that you have to deal with. One of the major ones is how to have the state effectively develop projects with a limited number of resources and grow the economy. One of the innovative ideas that you've introduced is an idea of entering the state into public-private partnerships, or P3s. Explain that.
PPP, my three favorite letters in the legislative process, because it's a different approach to providing government services to the public. The old model was pull money out of a taxpayer's pocket, 100% state paid for facility. Rail is a good example of how that thing's gone sideways because it's 100% taxpayer paid for. Public-private partnership invites the private sector, their investment and their technical expertise to help us as a state move a project along. If you look at the rail system, if there was PPP, they would have an advertising campaign, they would put electricity and fiber optics in the conduit, they would have naming rights, they would have all kinds of different approaches to how we promote and build out this particular facility. And one of my biggest projects in the district I represent is Aloha Stadium, and using PPP as kind of the roadmap for reinventing that entire area. There you have a 43-year-old facility that is kind of rusted, always needs millions of dollars in repair every year. We need to tear that facility down, build something that is more multi-use, perhaps a 35,000-seat stadium that can accommodate rugby, can accommodate soccer, can accommodate concerts, can accommodate UFC fighting, can accommodate more than just football. But it's not going to just be the stadium itself. There's 100 acres that the stadium sits on currently. It's home to a swap meet and 6 UH football games. It could be so much more. It could be something similar to what Los Angeles has at LA Live. You have the Staples Center, and around it you have an ice rink, you have theaters, you have museums, you have restaurants, you have hotels, you have vibrancy. We have no vibrancy around Aloha Stadium. And as we move forward, hopefully with that idea, we will bring in public-private partnership to develop that entire area that can connect really Arizona Memorial to the stadium. You have 1.8 million people, our #1 tourist attraction. They get on a bus, they see the memorial, they get on the bus, and they bail. There's nothing for them to see and stick around to look at. So public-private partnership, I think, would be huge in redeveloping that Aloha Stadium area.
Well, construction right now is booming, so, and there may be only a limited number of entities that could enter into some of these state projects. How would you ensure that the state is entering into cost-effective partnering?
PPP is not for everything. Maybe it's for about 30% of government projects. An example where PPP sometimes doesn't work is when you build prisons. Prisons are very expensive, but you know, if you think about the business model, the business entity wants to have people stay in there as long as possible and as many people as possible so that they get compensated for that lease agreement. So maybe prisons are not a good example of where the state would want to go into a PPP. But to answer your question, there are a lot of entities, and actually with PPP, you invite all kinds of outside developers and outside ideas into a state. And you know, unfortunately, we have a state here that when it comes to government contracting, we're pretty bad at government contracting, and we have the same players doing change orders and extending the project. It's never on time, it's never on budget. I think the public deserves more, and I think PPP is the path forward.
All right. Well, another very innovative idea that you've proposed to help boost the economy are small satellite launch sites. Explain that.
There are 20,000 small satellites in the queue. And you know, I don't have my mobile phone, but we do everything on a mobile phone these days, and as we have more and more devices, we need more and more broadband and more satellite connections, and not just in the urban areas. Across Africa or Southeast Asia, where there's very little coverage, we can get coverage to those parts of the world with small satellite launches. And Hawaii, because we're the closest to the equator, we're spinning faster than any place else in America. So spin launch, which is a newcomer to the space arena, isn't your grandfather's old traditional Cape Canaveral kind of upright, boom, I'm going to shoot into the heavens approach. Theirs is using centrifugal force, and you pretty much just catapult a rocket out of a chute, kind of like a gun going off. So instead of having 90% fuel, which is the traditional way of shooting a rocket into space, using electricity, centrifugal force, and just launching a satellite into orbit. And this is a huge market. One of these upright, SpaceX, is the private sector that's coming into play here. When SpaceX shoots a satellite, a vertical satellite, or excuse me, rocket into space, it's a $20 million investment, albeit there's like 10 satellites in there. When we're doing the centrifugal force spin launch, it'll be $250,000. So you can see how there's a huge cost savings, but when you have 20,000 satellites in the queue, that's a lot of economic opportunity.
But let's talk about the impact on the community and the surrounding area. I know that there's some concerns about that. What kind of impact would there be?
Well, 30 years ago, the Big Island, particularly of Puna, was very against small satellite launches because that was the traditional Cape Canaveral, ugly fuel launch and very impactful. As I mentioned, the centrifugal force is kind of like a bullet, just there's a bang, and that's pretty much it. That's the environmental impact on the community. And they don't need a huge footprint. They're looking for about 10 acres. And right now they're looking kind of in that Ka'u area, or if the folks in Ka'u don't want the satellite there, they might be looking at the northern Big Island, Kohala, north of Kohala, or they might be even looking at Molokai. So there's a lot of different areas that they're looking at, but it's such a huge opportunity that I hope Hawaii can capture.
And you will be going out to the community in order to be a little more collaborative about this idea?
Oh yes, on March 24th, Saturday, myself, Kai Kahele from the Senate are going to go and visit with the people from the Ka'u Ahumoku and talk story with them. If this is something that they find repulsive, we'll take our bat and ball and we'll go someplace else. But we will certainly embrace the community and get their input on what they want to see in their community.
Terrific. Well, I know both of those measures are in the House for consideration.
Go House.
So stay tuned.
Great ideas, House guys.
Stay tuned. But thank you for joining us for Live at the Legislature. Thank you for watching us. And we'll see you next week.